Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and this week I'm looking at the action-adventure game Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, developed by Naughty Dog and released in 2016. Development began in 2011, immediately after Uncharted 3, with Amy Hennig and Justin Richmond set to write and direct once again. However, both of them departed from the company in 2014, leading them to be replaced by Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley. Druckmann had been a writer on the first two Uncharted games before being put in charge of The Last of Us during Uncharted 3's development, while Straley had directed Uncharted 2 alongside Hennig and was also a director of The Last of Us. Druckmann would work with Josh Schur to write the script, the pair previously writing together on the first two installments, and they gutted Hennig's script, cutting out what they said was 8 months of story. And would you believe it, cutting out massive parts of a story and having to scrap years of development work put the studio behind, as they had to do more work in 2 years than they did in the past 3. Does Nathan Drake's swan song sing a simply successful sonnet, or does it fall flat under the crumbling support of crunch time? Let's find out as we give it everything we've got! The game begins with what else but a quote. This one is from the King of Pirates, Henry Avery, a legendary pirate most famous for stealing 600,000 euros worth of precious metals from a convoy of Grand Muggle ships during their pilgrimage to Mecca. 600,000 euros back then is equivalent to 19.1 million euros or $21.6 million today. This led to the first recorded worldwide manhunt, which actually ended up being a failure. Henry was never found and his loot is still missing to this day. The game picks up with Nathan Drake on a boat again, this time with an unknown passenger. They're currently fleeing from a fleet of other boats. Their explosive escape eventually ends when a flaming ship crashes right into them, sending Nate crashing into the past. Yup, once again we have an Uncharted game opening with Nate fighting through a group of people only to get blindsided and supposedly die, only for the game to flash back to a younger Nate. He sneaks around and through the orphanage he's in because, again, apparently he's been a skilled climbing expert forever. He finds his file, which reveals that his real last name starts with an N or an M, ooh, mystery, and meets up with another kid on the roof.
Hey, it's good to see you, little brother.
Yup, Nate's had a brother this whole time, and he has never been referenced or mentioned once before this. I'm sure there's a good reason in there somewhere. This is Sam Drake, and he helps Nate escape to show him a new bike he brought that he's going to use to drive straight out of Nate's life as part of a new job. He also tells Nate that he's found who bought all of their mom's old research. And they drive off to take it back straight into the future, but still the past. Nate's in a pesky Panamanian prison and gets thrown in solitary confinement. He's taken out by Vargas and led to an old section of the building with a view of an old tower. Vargas intercepted a letter Nate had discovered from one of Henry Avery's crew saying his cell holds a clue to the riches of paradise and wants in. Nate says he'll take a look around and if they find anything, talk to someone named Rafe about letting Vargas in. Inside the cell, Nate solves an astrological puzzle to find a hollow idol of Saint Dismas the penitent thief. He returns to Vargas and lies about his discovery before meeting up with the other people on this mission, Sam and Rafe. Nate isn't too happy that Rafe attached himself to their mission last minute, but Sam says they wouldn't have gotten into the prison without him. They move into a private area to discuss Nate's findings, and Sam deduces that their next stop is a St. Dismas Cathedral in Scotland, since Scotland was also Henry Avery's last known location. Their meeting is abruptly adjourned by the man Nate beat up earlier. The only thing that guy is missing is some dude holding onto his pocket. The combat has been improved since the last game and is actually pretty fun. Shame it doesn't last long as Vargas and some other guards break it up. They find the idol during the security pat-down, and Vargas has the three of them sent into his office. Vargas negotiates for 25% of the treasure, and Rafe agrees before stabbing him in the back by stabbing him in the side. They flee through an area that looks strangely like a clean Mount Massive Asylum to the rooftops, all while dodging large amounts of gunfire. Well, people have escaped gunfire by running in a straight line before, so they aren't in any danger.
Sam, no. No, you hold on! Hold on! Sam! Give me your other arm! Come on, reach! No! Sam!
Thanks for coming, Sam. It was nice of you to stop by for, like, 20 minutes. Nate has no time to grieve, as he'll wind up right next to Sam if he does, so he and Rafe carry on, jumping right down into an intro title sequence. I actually really like this title sequence. It stylishly recounts everything Nathan Drake has done so far, and does a great job making you feel like you're witnessing the conclusion of a grand tale. We flash forward 15 years as Nate recovers a shipping container at the bottom of a lake as part of a recovery team, the job he's taken up after retiring from adventuring. Later that day, day, his boss approaches him about a job salvaging a ship off the coast of Malaysia. Only problem is, they don't have the official permits for it. Nate's turned down the job in the past and still refuses to go, though agrees to take the paper back to his home office. Speaking of which, Nathan Drake has one of the most badass home offices ever. It's got a bunch of decorations, valuable shit, the journals from his past 3 adventures, a haunting reminder of his dead family and the treasure he never found, all the fun of the fair. Elena spoils the fun by calling Nate down for dinner, and like a good husband, he completely spaces out while she's talking about her work. After they finish, they get into an argument over who gets to do the dishes, and Nate challenges her to a game where the winner does the dishes. Sounds like something you'd have the loser do, but whatever, I'll take any excuse to get Nathan Drake to play Crash Bandicoot. What follows is essentially Nathan Drake doing my job for me as he mercilessly scrutinizes a video game designed to entertain and complains about every little thing he can find.
Why is the boulder chasing me?
Just run away from it.
I did nothing to this boulder. That spinning hurt me. What is that thing, a fox?
A bandicoot.
Looks like a fox. It's like a fox in jeans. Why is a fox smashing crates?
Bandicoot, and that's just what he does.
It's a fox, and it's not very realistic. By the way, foxes can't do this.
It's a bandicoot.
That doesn't look anything like a bandicoot.
Have you ever seen a bandicoot?
No, but I'm sure they don't wear sneakers. 100? Who's got time to pick 100 pieces of fruit?
You fell in the pit.
I don't know. How do I climb back out?
You're dead.
Well, that's not realistic. I would have climbed back out. He should learn to climb. Oh, that poor fox.
Bandicoot.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
And yes, you do actually get to play through the level. I enjoy this scene between Nate and Elena a lot. It's really the first time we get to see what they're like when they're actually in a relationship together, and it feels genuine. The game was made with the goal of focusing on the relationship between these two, and it scenes like these that really make it work. Speaking of work, Nate's doing some in his barge office when he hears some real persistent knocking. He eventually relents and opens the door to see...
Yeah, I'm, looking for my little brother.
Obviously, Sam's still alive. Nate tells Sam about the 3 other games, and Sam tells Nate that he escaped alongside Panamanian crime lord Hector Alcazar, and we actually get to play through the escape. As Alcazar transforms the prison into late August 2020 Kenosha, I'd like to bring attention to his voice actor, Robert Atkin Downs. Downs has actually voiced a prominent character in every Uncharted game. He was Atok Navarro, Tenzin, and Talbot, meaning in 3 of his 4 roles, he voiced one of the main villains of the game. Upon escaping, Alcazar politely requests that Sam track down Henry Avery's missing treasure within the next 3 months and drives off. But at least he gave Sam some money and water. You know, he's really a nice guy. Back in the present, Nate reveals that he and Rafe searched the St. Dismas Cathedral and found nothing, and that Rafe bought up all the land around it and still hasn't stopped looking. Sam reveals a second St. Dismas idol being sold at a black market auction, and that it isn't broken and hollow like the one before, so whatever was taken from the broken one may still be hidden in the intact one. Nate doesn't want to help Sam break into and rob a black market auction because he's sane, but he also doesn't want his brother at the mercy of an insane crime lord, so he calls Elena and lies to her as a cover for their heist. They arrive at the estate in Italy and wait for Sully to get inside and give the signal, Sam doubting Sully's loyalties even though we've already been down that road and nothing came of it.
Alright, no one likes a show-off.
Unless what they're showing off is dope as fuck.
Scaling the side of the Rossi estate is fun and all, but it's too similar to the scaling of the old prison tower from minutes prior for my liking. It gets them inside though, and they reunite with Victor Sullivan, who gets the full Raymond Reddington intro, complete with meaningless non sequitur.
Know what I love about partying with a bunch of crooks?
What's that?
Nobody cares if you smoke indoors.
Inside the party, a shift in auction order causes them to construct a new plan to steal the cross after cutting the power. Nate and Sam sneak off while Sully has a run-in with Nadine Ross, voiced by Laura Bailey, who is just in fucking everything. She was Rise Kujikawa in Persona 4, the titular Catherine in Catherine, MJ in Spider-Man, Supergirl in Injustice 2, Abby in The Last of Us 2, Catwoman in Telltale's Batman, Black Widow in Marvel's Avengers, Lucina in Fire Emblem Awakening, and most recently she was Lieutenant Polina Petrova in Call of Duty Vanguard. Needless to say, we'll be seeing a lot more of Laura on this channel. Back to Nadine Ross though, Sully reveals that she is the leader of an army for hire named Shoreline that Sully has had run-ins with in the past, and I'm sure the fact that they are sharing this information doesn't mean it'll be like absolutely crucial to the plot going forward or anything. Nate and Sam explore the basement and emerge outside, Sam breaking off from Nate to steal a waiter's outfit and infiltrate the party so he can get close to the cross undetected. Nate continues to scale the sprawling estate, and we briefly switch back to Sully's conversation with Nadine as Rafe joins in. Man, there are so many moving parts at this party. And here's one more. Nadine is actually working with Rafe. Do you see where this is going? Nate makes it into the power room but needs Sully to stall for time, forcing him to enter a bidding war with Rafe over the cross with money he doesn't have. Nate cuts the power and Sam nabs the cross. Nate's journey to rendezvous with Sam is briefly interrupted by a new gameplay mechanic, detection. Now, stealth is actually a viable way to clear areas of enemies so long as Nate isn't detected. A meter will appear above their head to show that they're on his trail and will go away if Nate moves out of their line of sight. His escape plan goes smoothly after that. I'm just kidding, it's Nathan Drake. None of his plans work. He gets into a very one-sided fight with Nadine over the idol that he's not in possession of, and as the fight goes on, the odds of Nate winning continue to crash. Their escape gets explosive once Sam finds a gun, and we witness possibly the most impossible thing this side of Shambhala being a hidden city.
Catch! Wait, what? Oh, crap. Hey, I got it!
They fight their way through the surprisingly high amount of security guards and last just long enough for Sully to come in clutch with the escape vehicle. Back at their hideout, they find a scroll inside the idol that reveals the next clue is hidden within Henry Avery's grave at the St. Dismas Cathedral in Scotland. You know, the one Rafe has been searching for the past 15 years? Yeah, once again we have an Uncharted villain who has been right on top of the thing he's been looking for and never found it. Although instead of 3 months, he had 15 years and never bothered to check the nearby graveyard. We also get a nice exchange between the three. Sully warns Nate about lying to Elena and tells Sam how hard it was for Nate to get out of this life. And Sam brings up how Nate chose to jump back in and that it's ultimately his decision. Now in Scotland, Sully waits as Sam and Nate trek through the hills to get to the graveyard, occasionally coming to blows with Shoreline, Nadine's army. They arrive at the graveyard and find Avery's grave, using it to reveal a hidden door housing a crypt and a clue toward their next location because it isn't a hidden treasure if it takes less than 500 different steps to find it. They make their way to the cave in a section of the game that I like, but not as much as the standout locations from 2 and 3. Inside the cave, they find a message with the insignia of Thomas II, another real pirate, albeit not as famous or successful as Henry Avery. II is most known for pioneering the Pirate Round, a sailing route that a large number of pirates would end up using, including William Kidd and Henry Avery himself. Continuing further down the cave, they have to pass a series of trials, culminating in a scale with an idol on one side and coins on the other. The solution is to take just one coin, because you know how pirates have always hated greed. A map is revealed pinpointing King's Bay in Madagascar, and you know exactly what's about to happen. Sam tricks Nadine into having a soldier activate the death trap, really making you wonder how this test could be failed more than once. After fighting their way to Sully's plane, Nate theorizes that the St. Dismas idols were sent out to other wealthy pirates like Avery, and that those who passed would join him and pool their wealth with his. They try to figure out where in King's Bay they need to go, leading to an actually clever solution hiding in plain sight.
The people who survived the caves, the recruits. What's the one thing they would have left with?
There's a volcano on this.
There's a volcano near King's Bay.
Nate once again lies to Elena, and that brings us into Madagascar, now with 100% less penguins. Well, except for one. What follows is a massive and extensive exploration of the plains of Madagascar as they drive toward the volcano, searching towers with different pirate captain insignias and fighting through more of Nadine's men. They finally make it to the Avery Tower and discover a map of the 12 towers, which Shoreline is all too happy to obliterate. Using the symbol on the coin, they narrow their search down to the Lord of the Rings, the 2 towers, and split up to search them. Nate and Sully's tower is in the middle of a market, where Nate gets an apple, pets a lemur, and has his apple stolen by said lemur. Not the first time a ring-tailed animal stole something from Nolan North. Inside the tower, Nate has to ring a series of bells in a specific order, giving us another one of those camera shots I like so much in the 3rd game, and the casual destruction of an entire tower. Down below, Nate solves the most elaborate fucking puzzle involving pirate captains and their insignias, and discovers another map with the message "For God and Liberty." He calls Sam to fill him in, but the call is intercepted by Rafe, who hacked their phones and has been using their GPS to track them down. Nate and Sully leave the tower, allowing for the opportunity for one of the greatest trophies in achievement history. If you don't touch the controller for 30 seconds after the end of the cutscene, you will be rewarded with the Stage Fright trophy. A reference to when Naughty Dog was showcasing the game at a convention and their controller stopped working, leading to 30 seconds of Nathan Drake standing in that exact spot. When Nate finally decides to move, he has to fight through the market to get back to their Jeep, and then race through the town to get Sam. I enjoyed this car chase immensely as it feels cinematic and energetic, and while the paths you can go down are limited, it rarely feels like it. When they catch up with Sam, we get another instance of Nate fighting through a convoy of cars, but the added control of the vehicles adds a wrinkle to make it feel more fresh. Eventually, they escape back to their motel, where Nate and Sam reveal to Sully that they've been following a path to Libertalia, a fabled pirate utopia housing all of their treasure. They're all in high spirits when...
How's the Malaysia job going, Nate?
Come on, you knew this was coming. Elena is understandably upset that Nate lied to her about what he was doing and never mentioned his brother before, including one point that makes this whole argument a lot more real.
If you were killed, I wouldn't have even known about it.
Nate says he's doing all of this for Sam and doesn't care about the treasure, which Elena doesn't buy and storms off, allowing Nate to immediately prove her right by refocusing on the treasure, sending Sully to look after Elena instead. Now at sea, Nate and Sam have to follow a series of large golden arrows through a series of islands in the most beautiful tropical area I have ever seen in any game. The arrows bring them through a cave system and down a cistern, where a much more complicated and enlightening puzzle reveals a Henry Avery statue much larger than the other pirate statues because pirates were always so humble. The telescope in the statue's hands points to their next location, and it's about time Shoreline showed up to profit off of all of their work, bringing us back to the opening of the game. Remember that from like 20 minutes ago? Yeah, this game started at one point, flashed back to the past, then flashed forward, yet still in the past from where the beginning took place, and now we're finally back to where the game opened. Is this Uncharted 4 or Persona 5? Drake washes ashore and attempts to locate Sam, but crashes and, well, he doesn't burn, he moistens? Regardless, he wakes up to a flashy message from Sam and resumes his search, coming across more shoreliners along the way. He finds Sam and has some doubts about continuing, but they're pushed to the side when he discovers Avery's sigil carved into a rock. They press on and find Libertalia. Huh. No huge curse, no immortal defenders, just an overgrown city. Third time's the charm, I guess. Libertalia is my favorite of the lost cities to explore in these games. It's not in perfect condition like Shambhala and Ubar, and you aren't spending all your time fighting enemies. It's a place lost to history with a story you've missed. You're living in its world after the story ends. Okay, so enemies do show up occasionally, but it's still mostly about the story of the city, and the story gets even more complicated when they reach the High Rent District, littered with pirate bodies in what looks like a makeshift battleground. Inside the treasury, they notice that all of the treasure is already gone, and all of the founders' portraits have thief written out on them. Nate realizes that the founders of Libertalia stole all of the treasure because they're fucking pirates, and Sam says they moved it to New Devon as inscribed on the ceiling. They make their way to New Devon but are interrupted by Nadine, who has no problem with a handicap match and does a great job holding her own. Things spill out to the cliffside when Rafe arrives and the truth comes out.
Alcazar died in a shootout in Argentina like 6 months ago. I'm the one that got Samuel out. Thing is, Nate, I never stopped looking for Avery's treasure. I just kept running into these dead ends. And then I hear that our dear old Samuel Drake, an authority on Avery, is alive and somewhat well. There was no breakout. I bribed the prison warden, and your brother, he just waltzed right out the front gate. He spent the last 2 years tracking down a second St. Dismas cross. You know what? He did it all with me.
Didn't you think it was a little odd that Alcazar hadn't been a presence in this story, like, at all? Rafe says that Sam bamboozled him by working with Nate and Sully, and Sam blocks a shot at Nate. However, he still falls off the cliff and passes out, dreaming about the past. Yes, we're finally getting the resolution to that flashback from the beginning of the game. I had completely forgotten the earlier flashback even happened when I first played this. They search through the house and eventually find their mother's journals, including that one in the box at Nate's office from earlier, and as you may have been able to guess, it details her attempts to find Libertalia. That's why this was so important to them. Furthermore, when the owner of the house arrives, we finally learn who Nathan Drake really is.
You're Cassandra Morgan's boys.
Say hello to Nathan Morgan and Samuel Morgan. That old woman used to work with Cassandra and tells him about their theory about Francis Drake's heirs and promptly fucking dies. Nate and Sam flee from the cops and realize they have to assume new identities if they want to go back to living a normal life, and decide to honor their mom's work.
What do you say? Nathan Drake?
And it turns out Nate was telling all of this to Elena, filling her in on why he never mentioned his brother. She explains that Sully brought her here and is waiting for their escape, and the two of them head off to rescue Sam from Rafe and Nadine, but not before Nate gets hit with a low blow that he kinda deserves.
Thanks for saving me. Again.
I almost didn't this time.
Nate and Elena explore more of the island, so this game has even more of a chance to essentially remake the setting from Uncharted 1. They also do what 90% of married couples are incapable of doing: talk through their problems.
You know, even if you think that you're protecting me, you don't have a right to shut me out. No matter what it is, you're supposed to come to me so that we can work through it together. As a team.
Their journey brings them to a bridge over troubled water, and speaking of troubled, there's no better way to describe their history with bridges, but I'm sure they'll be—
I hate bridges!
Yeah, okay.
Okay! I'm okay!
It's scenes like these that really make me like this game. The scale is so much bigger and it's constantly evident. This near-death experience gives Nate clarity, and he admits that he wasn't trying to protect Elena at all.
I didn't tell you because I was afraid
Afraid of what?
of losing you.
They finally make it to New Devon, which, isn't looking as lively as I expected. On the subject of life, Nate and Elena cross New Devon into Thomas II's house, where they find the remnants of the founders of Libertalia. Well, aside from Avery and 2. Turns out even the betrayers got betrayed because, duh, pirates. Inside Avery's mansion, they find a note showing that Avery turned on 2, telling his men that 2 stole all their money because, again, pirates. Duh! Down some caves, they discover that Henry Avery went full Andrew Ryan and more shoreline goons, since Rafe and Sam aren't too far ahead. They head further into the Ryan Shrine, Sharian, and almost become a part of it, escaping just in time.
Lena, come on. Lena!
My hero.
Oh, no, you didn't do that. No! That's not funny!
Oh, you have done much worse.
God, you gave me a goddamn heart attack.
Oh, let me listen. Sounds good to me.
You realize we're now even for everything I've ever pulled, right? Yeah, like ever.
No, not by a long shot.
Man, Naughty Dog makes good characters when they try. They escape into a massive ship graveyard, leading to what may just be my favorite gunfight in the entire series. Is there anything more badass than taking down a group of soldiers within the wreckage of genuine pirate ships on a tropical island? The answer is yes. The ships could be on fire. Everything is cooler when it's on fire. Well, not exactly, but you know what I meant. During the fight, they reunite with Sam and eventually Sully as well. And as the only fight that matches the length of the annoying gunfights from the 3 previous installments, it feels deserved as opposed to overdone. We're nearing the end and we're in a huge open area. The 4 discuss what to do next, with Sam being the only one who still wants to find the treasure. Nate brings up the lesson he learned last time, and thanks to the flashback from earlier, we understand why Sam is so driven to find it. They seem to convince him, though he can't let it go and eventually heads off to find the treasure alone. Nate can't let Sam get himself killed, so he goes to bring him back, saying he'll fight him if he has to. He descends into the cave housing Avery's ship just in time to see Nadine's mercenaries betray her and side with Rafe when she wants to leave. 3 of the 4 Uncharted antagonist duos have ended in betrayal because these writers just have a small handful of story beats that they repeat. Nate heads into Avery's ship as Rafe is currently blowing it to hell and finds Avery's treasure, confronting Rafe soon afterwards and seeing a downed Sam. Rafe seems to have the upper hand when Nadine shows up, but she betrays him and leaves. I don't know what else he expected, he just turned her men on her. Nate points out that Henry Avery and Thomas II killed each other over the treasure, but that doesn't stop Rafe from challenging Nate to a sword fight pirate style. Rafe summarizes the last 3 games and takes some not so playful jabs at Nate until he equips a sword of his own, leading to the best final boss fight in the entire series. Yeah, it's essentially quick time events and none of the boss fights in this series are particularly great from a gameplay perspective, but come on, it's in a pirate ship, which I've already said is awesome, and this one is on fire! Plus, it's a mirror image of Avery and 2's downfall over the same treasure in the same room. The fight comes to an end when Nate drops the base, and by the base, I mean a fat stack of heavy treasure that crushes Rafe. He frees Sam and they escape from the ship mostly intact. Back at port, Nate once again puts his thieving life behind in favor of a life with Elena, saying goodbye to Sully and Sam before driving off. The 2 S's then agree to a partnership going forward. We flash forward a short period of time where Elena reveals that she and Nate are buying the salvage company Nate works for, she got the permit for the Malaysia job, and she's going to revive her TV show to document their findings. And all of this will be funded by Avery's treasure that Sam snuck into her jacket. See, instead of Nate having to give up a large part of his identity, they combined their love of adventure and craving for a normal life by going on adventures that are entirely legal and a lot more safe. Also, we get another great ending conversation.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to do any paperwork.
Well, I can't do it. I'm gonna have my hands full with the camera.
Well, I'm gonna have my hands full with all the diving.
Okay, fine. We'll take turns.
Yeah. Or I could play for it.
Seriously?
No, listen, I have been practicing. I'm getting good.
No.
My hand-eye is way better than it used to be. Really?
I cannot do that to you again.
Are you afraid to play me?
I am so not afraid
On a
to
scale
play
of
you.
1 to 10, how scared are you to play me?
Like a 3.
Yeah, well, jack that up to like 11, all
Oh,
right? Because I'm coming for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my. That's. Okay. Fine. You're on.
Ha, psych! There's an epilogue where we play through Crash Bandicoot again. After the level ends, the camera pans around and... Wait. This doesn't look like Nathan Drake's room. Wait. Who the fuck are you?
I really should clean this up. Later.
Well, whoever she is, she's immediately the most relatable character in this series. She explores her swank-ass beach house and makes her way over to the nearby office area, finding some keys and unlocking a closet containing memorabilia from all of Nate's previous adventures. And yeah, if you haven't guessed it by now, this is Cassie, Nate and Elena's daughter, as if there was anyone else she could fucking be.
Language.
Yeah, language.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Cassie wants to know what's going on around here and what shady shit her parents were into.
Language.
Come on, we're almost done here, just let me have this. Nate and Elena decide to tell Cassie about the adventures they've been on, tying everything up in that one moment as the curtain closes once and for all on Nathan Drake. Morgan. For the only game in the series not written by Amy Hennig, it sure is a strong conclusion. For the first time in the series, the game is more focused on story than anything else, so there aren't as many jaw-dropping backdrops or moments, as they're replaced with emotional character moments that make Nate, Elena, Sully, and Sam all feel like living, breathing people that have history with one another, and none of their actions feel out of character. The writers said the main focus was on the relationship between Nate and Elena, but it really felt like it was mainly Nate and Sam, and how Sam represented who Nate was at the start of the series. But I think both were done well, and I ended up liking Sam way more than I expected. I think Rafe and Nadine were fine villains, though Rafe never felt on the same threat level as Lazarevich, Marlowe, and Talbot. Nadine was a solid character, and they managed to create a badass female character without having to say how badass she is every 5 seconds, and a lot of modern media could take notes from that. I liked how they didn't go back down the curse well, instead focusing on a lost city that fell apart by natural means, greed. It fit with the story they were telling with the characters, and after 3 games where each main setting was drastically different, the islands of Madagascar felt very similar to the first game, though you could see it as a symbolic parallel. Lastly, I really hope the rumors of an Uncharted 5 are not true, and if they are, I hope Nathan Drake isn't the main character. He got his happy ending, and I don't want to see him dragged back into the fray again. If they have to make a 5th game, I hope they center on a grown-up Cassie or Sam and Sully's adventures. I think there's a lot more to get out of that than another Nathan Drake story. Plus, there aren't any more Indiana Jones movies to compare them to. Overall, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End gets an 8 out of 10. The story of this game is far superior to that of its predecessors, relying a whole lot less on coincidences and a lot more on character decisions and emotion. And while the large landscapes were impressive in their own right, they lose some individual identity by being too similar to areas already seen. The new gameplay changes were greatly appreciated, though not enough was added to the climbing sections to truly take them to the next level. And that's it. There are no more Uncharted games to cover. There are no more Uncharted games to cover. But what are we going to move on to after seeing the last of them? Well, remember when I said we'd be seeing more of Laura Bailey on this channel? That future will be upon us faster than you think. I hope to see you there.